Hi, and welcome back to FXPhD Photogrammetry Class 6. On the previous classes, we saw how to bake all the textures and how to build our quick setup in Maya. On these classes, we're gonna see how to redo a quick topology on the mesh. You can see here we do have a much cleaner topology on the mesh. Also, we do have on this version a much better UVs. So basically, before we used to have a more raw geometry. Oh, for some reason it just moved. Let's put it back and geometry. There we go. So we used to have, let me stop this render, a much raw geometry with triangles. And obviously the UDIMs was completely spread and warped from reality capture. So let's get started and see how we can do it. If I go back to reality capture here, basically I do have my model. Sorry, I do have my model with the old UVs and a default geometry. So what I'm gonna do is just to do a quick export here and check my model first. So this is a previous example I did myself. So I'm gonna just rename it just 3, for instance, to ZBrush. To ZBrush. There we go. So I'm gonna export this and yeah, no texture, doesn't matter. And we're gonna see this model in Maya first. It's always a good idea to check your model before you proceed to the next step. So before going through the different steps, I'm gonna just import this one quickly. And you can see here, I do have OK geometry here. So it's probably OK. And the UVs here, it's already gone. So what I'm gonna do is probably the wrong model. So basically here I'm gonna just import a previous one, so the one I did exported. So if I import this one here, this is still clean, so it's probably not that one as well. Let me import texture ZBrush texture version 2. This is probably the one I should start with. Yeah, this is exactly the one I need. So yeah, this is all UVs. And my topology is definitely an old one. So let me go back in. There we go. This is the one I need to test. Let me re-import it again. So it's a texture version 2. I'm gonna import it. Yeah, this is the one. So the way we're gonna do is to do a quick topology. And for this, I'm gonna just import the model in ZBrush. ZBrush we're gonna give us the access and the possibility just to remeasure everything and close the holes. So I'm not gonna do like 101 tutorials of ZBrush. It's just using ZBrush for the photogrammetry, and I think it's a very, very good tool for a lot of things and also for photogrammetry. So when you open ZBrush, what you have to do, you have this the light box here. So just click here and just close the light box. What you have to do here is in tool, so basically this menu, just to import your model. So if I go in my class here, cache, obj, and I'm gonna open this one here. So this is the one I do need, and just open it. So by default, you don't see anything. So you have to click drag and drop, and then you see your model. Just remember, you have to tick edit, and then you can navigate around here. I do have automatically my texture, so I'm gonna go in draw, color, and fill objects with the color white. There we go. So I don't have any colors. So there's a few things here are extremely interesting. So first of all, to navigate, you just have to turn around here, right? And the Shift F will show you basically the topology. So this is very, very interesting. So what we have to do, and what is very, very efficient, is just to clean up what we don't need in the model. So if I turn around here and I press Shift, I'm gonna just snap on the default view. So now I'm gonna press Control and Shift and Alt just to remove what I don't need. I'm gonna do this, Control, Shift and Alt again. I'm gonna remove this, and this, and this. So now I do have something much cleaner. So this makes more sense to have something like this. So because I just need the building here. Now it's not completely done. In geometry menu, in topology modification, modify topology, we have to delete what is hidden, because now we just hide it, but we haven't deleted. So when I click here, now I have just only my model, and I can click and there's absolutely nothing else. So this was the first step. Obviously you can do that in Maya or other program, but when you have tons of triangle or polygon, ZBrush is very, very efficient and can manage quite a lot of polygons or triangle very quickly and even in real time. We can do it in Maya, obviously, but it could take much longer, especially with OpenGL. So this was the first step. The second step we have to do, it's basically to make sure we don't have any holes. So again, when you create some geometry, it's very, very important to make sure we don't have any holes. So I'm gonna just make sure and click on close holes. So it's the same menu, still in Tools, Geometry, Modify Topology, and then we clicked here, so next to it, close holes. And you can see now we have a small holes here. And because we clicked Control Shift, we see the polygroup. So it's why we have here different color. So depends of your model and the way you did it in reality capture, you might have different polygroups. So to make sure we have one polygroup, so not different groups of geometry, we want to make sure here, if you scroll here in the middle and go down, and then you're just gonna group everything visible. So we have now a single color for the full model. So now I can Control Shift F just to remove the groups, the polygroup, sorry. So now what you have to do in geometry, we're gonna use the Z remesher. So the Z remesher is very, very important because we can basically recreate a very simple and very light topology based on this the raw topology from reality capture. So what we have to do is make sure you can freeze the border, freeze the groups, and detect edges and freeze groups. Now we have this. I'm gonna just click on Z remesher. It won't take too long for ZBrush to recreate a new mesh. So let's go back here. I'm gonna just untick everything. I do have some error because it doesn't matter too much yet. So just make sure you don't have anything here ticked. Because right now, what I do need, it's only the topology. And by default here, I come from a very heavy geometry. Let's go back here, Ctrl Z, or you can just press this undo slider here. So you can see what the Z remesher did. Very, very good and very efficient job, but we lost this last very nice angle here. So what I'm gonna do is just go back, see my topology. I have 75,000 polygon, and here I do have 1300, so it's definitely lighter. Because I'm not very happy with this, what I'm gonna do is to keep the border and just increase slightly this amount of polygon. So this is 1000. So it's gonna be, if you press Control, you have a small help. So 5 will be 5000 polygon. So 25 is gonna be 25,000 polygon. So I'm gonna click Z remesher again. Error. So I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this one here. Depends of your geometry. You have to tick different option. It's going to just to make sure I detect the edges. And because I do have much more geometry, it should keep now this nice angle. Because what is important is to keep the basic volume of the geometry. It won't take too long. If you have an issue, you just need to press escape here just to cancel this operation. So you see, I do have a much better result, still a bit low, but for now, I'm quite happy with this result. Again, what I need to have at the end is just a nice geometry of this one here. So now I'm very happy with this. You can see the topology is still a bit dense, but I still have a nice angle here, and I have again a very light quad version of the geometry. So now I go back completely on the top, and I'm gonna export this model. So I'm gonna rename this version to Maya, here, and then I'm gonna just go back to my Maya scene. Here we go. Oops, sorry, Maya scene. Here we go. So I'm gonna hide this, import here, and take my version here. Obviously, it's again, the rotation is incorrect. So I'm gonna leave it like this because the idea is I have to send it back to reality capture, because now what I have, it's a very nice mesh, but here I don't have any UVs. So now I'm gonna just create a quick UVs from this geometry. So if you go to UVs, just do an automatic, it doesn't really matter. You just have a basic projection. This is great. So now let's go back to the object here, and now I have a nice UVs. So this is now my model, and you can see the projection is much better and much more accurate, and I prefer to have this kind of UVs on one UDIM. Obviously you can have different UDIMs, it depends on the geometry and depends on what you need, but I think for our needs to use it as a basic model and geometry and textures, this is good enough. So now I'm gonna just export this, export selection. So what is very important, it's in reality capture, the y-axis, the z-axis in reality capture it's our y-axis in Maya. So if, for instance, you want to do any operation or UVs with the model on the right position, feel free to do all the UVs and operation here. But before you're gonna export it, just make sure this is back to 0. The reason is because we're gonna replace the model and rebake the texture. We have to make sure the position are similar. So now this is done. I'm gonna export. It's already here. Keep the groups. Keep everything in Maya. There we go. Caches, obj, by date, and I'm gonna call it to reality capture. Reality capture. So what I'm gonna do, just to make sure it's exported properly, just a quick check. There we go. Very happy, it's exactly what I need. And now back to reality capture. So here, because it's a model 6, is what I'm seeing here. You can see the small highlight for the eye here. I'm gonna just replace the model with a new geometry. So now, instead of exporting here, you have the last menu here. It's just to re-import the model. So here, if I import the reality capture model here, open. So now I do have a message like a warning. This message importer could be not find companion RC info. It's a reality capture info file when you export or import a model. So depends on your needs, but this is not necessary. Just a warning to telling you we don't have the RC info file, but by default it's absolutely fine. I'm gonna import it, and you can see it's completely black, obviously, because I need to rebake the model. And you see here, this was 6, now it's 5. It's just basically because I probably did a test and I deleted it. So it's why it's a new iteration here. And now what I have to do is just to bake the texture. And here might take a little while, depends of your needs. But basically now, because we align the pictures and the model haven't changed position, the position of the model is still in the right spot. So it just only need to reproject the texture on the model, so the one you had just before, but now with the new UVs. And it's why, as soon as this is done, what I just have to do is just to re-export the model with the texture, and then I will have here by default, let's go back to my cache obj, and now I should have my one udim, and you can see here probably I do have now, based on the udims, so only one, the texture on one udim. So this was a very interesting practice. Just crashed. A very interesting practice to how we can create a quick model, re-export, retopologize everything in ZBrush. Make sure you can fill the hole. This is very, very important. You can remesh your object visually. First is quick, and then you can go back and forth and adjust your model based on what you need. Again, the purpose of the photogrammetry is not to have a very heavy mesh. The idea is just to get a very light representation of the asset or environment or your room or set, whatever you have to do. You don't need to have something extremely dense and accurate, because it will be extremely heavy in your 3D software, regardless of which one is it. It's even if the OpenGL is quite real time, you have to keep in mind when you click render, you have to process this amount of geometry. So the more polygon, the more retracing and the more heavy is going to be in memory for your render. So it's always a very, very important thing to keep in mind, to keep a very as low as possible your model, because you can get this one, and then you can duplicate or instance with different plugin or scripts, but make sure you have something light, because this is not the main assets. Of course, it's just photogrammetry, so the purpose is just to get a decent representation of your set or model. So what I'm gonna do here is just to cancel, because at the end of this, what you have to do is you just have the same assets with the same texture, you just export, and then in Maya, you just have to import new model and assign again your surface shader here, assign your texture, and because you don't have any UDIMs, you don't have to switch to Mari, and then you render. You don't need lights, because the lights, it's baked straight away in your textures. So yeah, now the only thing I want to do before you finish this class is to abort this lesson, to abort this process and minimized. What I want to do is just to open a previous scene, and I just want to show you, because we just focused on the Empire State Building, but if, for instance, you want to do a little bit more and you don't have enough polygons, you have two different things. First, what you could do, let's go back to this one. Oh, loading projects, it was not loaded yet. Ready capture, there we go. There we go. So the idea, it's like here, obviously you can export this. So if, for instance, you want to have like something extremely detailed on the Empire State Building, so you can just do what we did here. Just on the model 1, you have nice volume, this one here. But what you can do, it's just to do a bigger chunk and make different UVs. And when you're gonna go to ZBrush, what you can do is just to delete this part, right? You can just delete the Empire State Building and keep the one with more definition. Again, it's all depends on your needs. Of course, if you want to have the full city, you can reopen the bounding box, like as much as possible. Doing a quick preview is gonna create model 6. Because everything is aligned, it won't take too long because it's just a quick preview. And then you can use this as a base, maybe not this one because it's a bit low quality, but you can maybe make a normal detail version just to get the rest of the city. And then you can here bake a texture and flag through the building here as a camera movement. And what is very, very interesting is because even if it's a very rough representation, try to make sure this is not too very low quality and very low mesh. But the idea is just if you fly through the city here, like a plane, helicopter, or any superhero, if you walk through here, all the reflection on your main assets will have the reflection of the building. So you will have the shadow, you will have the volume, and you will have all the reflection in your model. And this is why it's very, very powerful because again, it's not perfect, but it will do the joke because you will have the right reflection, the right ambient occlusion, because of course, if your model go inside here, you have obviously the lighting will go inside and will be a bit darker. So your model won't take too much light from the set. So it's why doing this kind of like very raw and very low quality photogrammetry is extremely important because it will save a lot of time during the previews, during the layouts, and all the process on your 3D workflow. So feel free just to export something very rough like this, or what you can do depends again on your needs. You can do some section here. So in our cases, during the previous and this class, we just focused on the Empire State Building, but you can totally just focus pier blocks or area or just a single building because we focus mainly on the Empire State Building just to put the maximum quality and amount of triangles and polygons on these main assets. But if you have any needs and more needs during the reconstruction, in settings, we haven't touched much, but here you do have the different settings during your production reconstruction. So here as a preview, you have downscale 4, or during the meshes calculation is what we are interested of. It's what we need to do. So here you can see preview, you don't have much options, but as soon as you go to normal models or you go to high models, then you do have the vertices count per parts for both of them. So it's where you can definitely increase those value to get something higher, because here we never been above 10 million triangle regardless of the model. But if you want definitely more quality or more density of your mesh, you can just change those settings. For the texturing, it's identical because this process, it's in the same box. So the settings here is for the preview, high and normal details, but colorize as well, even if you have two different quality, and then the texture. So we always click straight away to texturing, so F9, but if you want any settings or different parameters, different settings for this baking process, you can tweak everything here. Advanced, I never been too much on those settings, because the purpose of my photogrammetry it's only to get a very preview and representation of my mesh. And that's it, guys. So I hope this was clear and you've been through a little bit more in the 3D workflow on this video, because of course if you export in the raw data, again it's going to be very heavy. So now with this back and forth between reality capture, ZBrush, Maya, and go back to reality capture and export again because we baked the texture, we do have a much more accurate density. So you can see now it's triangle because we just re-exported from reality capture. So if you want to quads, go back, you have to go back to reality ZBrush here, but here it's good enough for me. And then we have our 1 UDIMS here, so it's a 8K UDIMS. But again, you can, before you go back to reality capture, you can spread this in few UDIMS. Hope you enjoyed this class and see you on the next one.